Good morning. Welcome everyone. I'm Srisha Rao. I'm an associate professor here in the Department of Aerospace Engineering, and I'm also the secretary of the Society for Shockwave Research. So, welcome all of you, especially members and alumnus of the Computational Wave Mechanics Lab of Professor S. Gopalakrishnan, in whose honor we are having this entire day celebrating his achievements in academics and research. The entire day is going to be as follows. The first session, that's the inaugural session, we will have a book release of the most recent book. Professor Gopalakrishnan has written many books, so we are thinking this is the most recent book which has come out recently by Professor Gopalakrishnan and Professor Rajendran. And today in the inaugural session, we will have with us as dignitaries Professor Satyam Suvas, who is the Divisional Dean of Mechanical Sciences, and Professor Dattaguru, who is the chief guest for the book release. He is a Padma Shri awardee and an expert in structural aerospace structures, and he is the previous former chair of the department. We also have our chair, Professor Joseph Matthew, and the president of the Shockwave Society, Professor Jagdish. Yeah, so we are going to have a full day and a full crowd, but I think it's early in the morning and people will trickle in. So enjoy the day, welcome to one and all, and let's begin the session. So first, I would like to call upon Professor Joseph Matthew, our chair, to give his remarks and welcome the gathering. Inaugurate.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy that this one-day symposium could be organized. The Shockwave Society has taken the lead in doing this, so I welcome both our faculty, those who've been associated with Professor Gopalakrishnan and so on, all who would have been part of this symposium, but also all the members of the Shockwave Society. This is jointly organized by that society and the Department of Aerospace Engineering. I also want to thank especially Professor Jagdish and Professor Srisha Rao who did this, who took the lead in organizing this, as well as Professor Roy Mahapatra, who was Gopal's first student, and Professor Karthik Venkatraman from the department who were part of doing this. But I hope you have a splendid day and enjoy hearing about the many accomplishments of Professor Gopalakrishnan and his students and collaborators who have gone all over the world and where their accomplishments also reflect on the program we have in this department and IISc. I think his contributions to the subjects, but also to the department and the institute have been tremendous, and it will be felt through his many students and collaborators and the work that they do. Welcome, enjoy this celebration.
Thank you, Professor. I now invite our Divisional Dean, Professor Satyam Suvas, Dean Mechanical Sciences, to give his remarks.
Good morning to all of you. It's my pleasure to be on this occasion, and it's one of the most satisfying and heartfelt feeling that I have come to this department as a divisional dean first time on this occasion on to celebrate the achievements of Professor Gopalakrishnan. We know each other for almost 2 decades, ever since I came to the institute. I think one of the first few meetings itself we became friends, and we have worked together. We have joined PhD students, collaborated. We had a very common friend, Krishnan Shankaran from Boeing, who was almost an interface between us. So much so that as a chair, when I initiated some activity on corrosion in materials engineering, I invited Professor Gopalakrishnan to be a part of it. So his research is spanned over different disciplines. It's truly interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary. Their scholastic achievements are known through 10 books that I have seen spread on the counter, and I think there are many more to come, and many more are probably being written. I was just checking with probably very high H index with more than 10,000 citations. So he is well accomplished. Nobody is, it need not be told to this audience, but it's my personal pleasure to give very good wishes to Professor Gopalakrishnan, and I'm sure he will remain as productive, probably more productive in the years to come. So with this, I thank you all for joining this, and I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you, Professor. I now invite the President of the Society for Shockwave Research, Professor Jagdish Gopalan, to give his remarks.
Lovely. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so happy to be here with you this morning, and welcome again on behalf of Society for Shockwave Research. People would be wondering why Society for Shockwave Research took a lead in this, but this is purely related to subject, notwithstanding the numerous number of cups of coffee that both me and Gopal have both in the morning and in the afternoon. Professor Rajendran has been visiting us in the Center of Excellence in Hypersonics for the last couple of years. Among the very interesting physical events that happen when a shock wave actually interacts with the material, or a blast actually hits the material, the brittle materials are one where the amount of data that is there in the literature have been phenomenal, but at the same time, you do not have them at a single place. Probably the book that they started writing together on the impact of the blast events on materials which are mostly brittle nature actually almost took about 4 years, if I could recollect. There have been numerous discussions, although I was not personally involved in the book writing part, but then Professor Rajendran, whenever he used to come here and used to actually take a look. In fact, this book is very interesting for some of you who are interested in material research and interaction with blast wave from many angles. In fact, I would rather spend 2 or 3 minutes on the book itself, because it is very rare that a faculty, when he is superannuating, you will actually have a book and it's also going to be released during the same time. Although this event is scheduled little ahead of their retirement, I thought it's a nice occasion, since incidentally Professor Rajendran also was visiting the department around the same time, and it's not very easy nowadays to travel all the way from North America to India. Special welcome to Raj and Pankajam ma'am for making it to this function. So this book is a very nice compendium. I will not get into the table of contents or anything, but I want to highlight just 2 aspects. One is, when people try to model material interaction with blast events today, many of the hydrodynamic equation-based codes which are available in the open market, like LS Dynat or Abacus, or many such codes are available. But unfortunately, there are several events in this entire physical, complicated, dynamical system where hydrodynamic equations basically fail. Especially in hyperballistic impact, the phenomenon of spallation is something where you will not be in a position to really address it using hydrodynamic codes. Now, this book actually addresses one very important aspect of how do you really get the constitutive modeling. The equation of state appears to be the biggest challenge even in modeling as well as in experiments. Although in experiments, people do try to get the equation of state by a very complicated process. Maybe this is the only book, in my view, in recent times where people have moved away from the modified Johnson-Cook model. If you go through the chapter number 4, if I recall, the varieties of the model which are there have been actually compiled in a single place. And I am not surprised, because Professor Rajendran himself is known for his work on ceramic material and coming out with his own equation of state over his long illustrious work for about 4 decades. So those of you, especially young students who are thinking that material interaction in FEM, I can only use either Johnson-Cook model or modified Johnson-Cook model, I would urge you, please go and read this book. You will actually see what is the current state of the art in how you can actually do constitutive equation of state modeling under extreme pressures and strain rate. More than anything, among all the several figures that they have taken pains to compile, figure number 5.12, I hope my number memory goes right. The only figure that I have seen where stress and strain to all the brittle materials, including meteorites, rock-like material, has been compiled at a single place. Incidentally, that is a paper done by Professor K.T. Ramesh, if my memory goes right. And K.T. Ramesh, of course, is known, but then some of those papers are not sometimes available. It is in a conference. So I'm very glad in a single place you will be able to get a very nice experimental correlation of stress versus strain on all the brittle materials from an existing database. I think from these angles, it is actually a very interesting piece of book which we are going to release shortly. Perhaps I would have loved to see more test cases when I went through. Of course, in the last part of your book, you do talk about how molecular dynamic simulations could be done. In fact, the smooth particle hydrodynamics, which is very popular to get the space debris cloud in the early days, in say 2 decades back, you actually spent some time to look at how many different ways of modeling are there in your last chapter. Maybe a few case studies would have actually helped students to really take it as a code, but I do still feel that the way you have organized this is actually good enough to be a master's course or a course for a PhD students in a university. One aspect, maybe it was not in your own area of expertise, where the effect of texture on shock impact is something probably you could have included. You could call it as a personal bias because Professor Satyam is one of the leaders in that field where we have had some joint work on the effect of metal texture on the way it absorbs the energy. Especially, we have also found that modeling them is extremely difficult, especially in the case of a single crystal copper, which we did few years ago. But overall, I think this is a fantastic achievement because anybody who can write a book, to me, always I regard them as somebody who is very organized in their thought process. People may call so many things and they may say, oh, they write books because PhD thesis is published. They would compile it, it becomes a book. It doesn't become a book like that. In fact, I know how hard Gopal has worked in the last several years, getting up early in the morning at 3 o'clock. Probably one of the aspects that I've always admired with him is he works harder than his students. I hope my students won't really feel offended. But it is nice feeling that he has not just written one book, he has gone on to write several books, and I also know he is actually writing one more book. So the society took a lead today because this was the first book on brittle materials where they talk about shock and impact. Congratulations to Gopal and Rajendran on getting this book through. And I would control everybody's thought process not to become nostalgic in the first half of the entire program, because several students have come and we would like to listen to hardcore technical presentations. But I am not a mechanic person by training, so we probably thought that the best person to talk about a book would be Professor K.R.Y. Simha. He is here. So before we move on, may I invite Professor K.R.Y. Simha to the stage to talk briefly about the book, and then we will formally release the book and then get on to the first invited talk by Professor Rajendran. Welcome, friends, and enjoy the day.
Thank you, Professor Jagdish. You again a wonderful introduction to the book as President of the Shockwave Society, which is perhaps the first ever rare event where we have a very good synergy of fluid mechanics, particularly shockwave, and material science and mechanics, particularly fracture mechanics, in which I happen to have had some training. May I now request the students to, the organizer, to project those 4 slides that I thought would be fitting the book release. The organizer gave me 5 minutes. I thought 4 slides should be the limit. I don't have to tell you that I'm very delighted that my friend and colleague Professor Gopalakrishnan has been a major distinguished UVC alumnus, has contributed a great deal of research, guiding students and interacting with fellow faculty. So I'm extremely proud to be associated with this felicitation function and also be part of this book release. So I'm sure all of you who have come to this seminar know that this title, Failure of Brittle Materials Under Shock and Impact, is a real rare event simply because those three authors who have contributed, including Professor Rajendran, who is with us this morning, had tremendous experience. In fact, almost close to 150 or 125 years of cumulative experience. That, as Professor Jagdish mentioned, has been condensed to words of wisdom, which I am sure students and faculty alike can take it forward both in experimental and computational work. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to. Oh, I'm sorry. You can understand that how updated I am in these things. So the series team is really fantastic. I thank and congratulate Professor Thakur, who starts the series theme as materials are indispensable for civilization, and the series covers galaxy of materials, and we have experts like Suhas who are really going to help take this field further. But may I also add that life on Earth is we're all not just fragments of an imagination, but really the fragments of failure and fragmentation of materials that were synthesized under shock and impact, where the temperatures and pressures could be in millions, if not billions. In fact, today I am very happy that this book, along with some of the earlier books which came out, I remember the first ever book came out about 50, 60 years ago by a group of people led by Ray Kinslaw. I think he put together a team of experts from Los Alamos and published the first book in academic press, which of course in those days data were not really declassified and not much data available to the general reader. Decade later, the series of books by Professor Zukas, with whom Rajendran has been interacting for over 40 years, came out in the year 1982 or so, in which he wrote a small book, hardly about 300 pages, which he then expanded into a huge book, which almost like 900 pages, in which the highlight of that book was a contribution from Professor Rajendran that almost took 180 pages with almost 300 references, which I think spilled over to the book which has interacted with Professor Gopalakrishnan. Next slide.
Yeah, I have.
Okay. So as you can see, the book, the statistics, some of the highlights already given by President of the Shockwave Society, but may I also add that the extremely condensed wisdom of these three pioneers, taking us back to the references which are 100-year-old, including the reference by Griffith, the father of fracture mechanics, and Kolsky and the rest of the pioneers who put together this field for us. And these 6 chapters, I would say the chapters 4 and 5 occupy the bulk of the book, coming to about 50%, and the 4th chapter really something which I got involved. I'm also very interested in the experimental work on high epsilon dot data, which, as you mentioned, data was not easily available in the old days, but now thanks to books like the book that we are releasing, we can get some idea of how it is so difficult and challenging to get these data, and it's even more challenging to model these data so that we can go ahead and work out programs for future needs of energy, like nuclear energy. As you know, is nothing about high velocity impact of high energy particles. So I feel that this book would give a very good grounding for students and faculty who are interested in taking this field of high speed impact further. Next slide. Well, as I said, I'm coming to the end of my presentation, and I think there is one more slide, or is this it? I can only count 2 or 3 at my age. So I guess.
That's it. That's the last.
This one is that coming?
For some reason,
I had one last slide where I thought it would be a.
5 minutes it stops automatically.
Yeah, this is the last slide. I don't know. We are in a hypersonic schedule here. We have to go very fast. Everybody gets like seconds or minutes. So the last slide. I thought the way I always got interested in interacting with Gopal and friends is how elasticity, triangle of elasticity, brought together structural mechanics people and other. I think aerospace engineering is the only department where all the 5 elements, Prithvi, ops, you name it, everything is there. Combustion, you have materials, you have water, air, sky, you name it. And I thought you would go back thinking the main contribution of this book is to help you appreciate, just like the square, triangle we have, the shock wave square, we have to figure out what are the stresses. Actually, it's only pressure, equation of state. It's called the CS equation of state, where you are more interested in the hydrostatic pressure. Now, of course, you should also interact with fluid mechanics experts, like the departments, full of them, to find out how to model really high pressure. I'm talking about kilobars or more, and temperatures that could be in excess of tens of thousands of degrees. So with these few comments, adding to the comments of the president of the society, a great delight for me to have taken a quick look at this book, and I congratulate the authors. And I'm also happy that the life never ends for a busy person like Gopal. I just remembered last week I had a friend from the University of Washington, where there is a professor whose student is the department, and name of the professor is Albert Kobayashi. He's 100 years and comes to the department every day. I hope Gopal also does that and writes. 10 is a good number, but 11 and 12 or 20 books will be a good number. Thank you very much once again. Wish you a very good day today and days to come. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Professor Sima, for that detailed introduction to the book. And so now we formally go towards the book release function. But before we go towards the book release function, just a couple of words thanking all the members who have been helping us. So Professor did mention that some of us were in the forefront. There is really a good number of people who have pulled this together, and they are the current students of Professor Gopalakrishnan and a few of our own postdocs, people like Chandra, Shalini, Anai, Himanshu, a few of them, and also Sandeep, Rajamanikam and Matan Babu. They have worked for about a month towards getting there, all this. And as we go to the day, we will get introduced to the huge number of students who have come out of Professor Gopalakrishnan's lab. They are all in very high places, and we will hear from them. But a good round of applause to all the members who have taken pains to get this organized. And thanks to also all our support staff, our office, as well as members of the LHSR office, who have done a lot of work getting the background things. Thank you. And now we will move to the book release function. The chief guest of our book release function is Professor Dattakuru. I may please ask you to come on to the dais. And Chandra, please help us. Then we have Professor Satyam Suhas, the Divisional Dean, and Professor Joseph Matthew. The authors of the day are Professor Arunachalam Rajendran and Professor Gopalakrishnan. Please come on.
One plane less.
Yeah, we have less places. So I also invite Professor Jagdish to come. Please, Professor Rajendran and
I will sit me. I think their boys will stand. You might have your guest.
yeah.
Sir, please. We want you to go there. Open it. Yes, please.
Stand with the author. All of us you can keep it like this. All of us. Yeah.
I request our chairman to give a token of appreciation to Professor Suhas and Professor Dattaguru. Now we will have the inaugural lecture, and the sessions will now be handled by our session program managers Chandra and Sandeep, who will introduce the chairs of the sessions, and they will take the sessions ahead. Enjoy the day. We have tea, lunch, and as well as dinner, high tea, where all of you can interact and share your memories through the day. Engineer.
Friends, I just want to say a few words about Professor Simha. In fact, he doesn't need any introduction for people who have worked in mechanics in this campus of Indian Institute of Science. You know, the amazing teachers we have had in the Department of Mechanical Engineering for probably over 3 decades. And what would really be very impressive about Professor Simha is the way he looks at things very differently. I'll just cite one example here because many years ago, maybe you would have forgotten, in a cup of coffee near the old coffee house, he asked, "Hey, you are from aerospace engineering. I am seeing this mahogany seed which actually falls down, and as it falls down, it auto rotates. Can you tell me how does it auto rotate? Why does it auto rotate? It looks very interesting." And believe me, friends, it took quite some time for us to really get into the aerodynamics. And I'm very glad today that we have had about 2 MTech students, and the third PhD student is actually working on that. And it is not so simple as we thought for an innocuous question. Even to capture the leading edge vertex on the auto rotating seed has become so difficult. But I'm glad that the student has made some progress today. Recently, we dropped a shape from about 140 meters on a drone, and where we had mounted some kind of a payload. And as it dropped down, it did not break. It actually did auto-rotate. So he was able to make an artificial wing actually inspired by the mahogany seeds. So we will not have a better person than Professor Simha today to chair the inaugural lecture by Professor Rajendran. Thank you very much, sir, for accepting to be the session chair for this session. Over to you.
Thank you for your generous comment, but the real star of the day is Gopal and Rajendran, who are going to now not only educate us but also take us back to times when students and faculty do really fundamental work, which I had already mentioned, appeared as a big chapter in the book, Shockwave by Lucas. Now, I also want to mention that we have Professor Rajendran, we share a lot in common. Is they never so as we get older, we have to do all these tricks to avoid sunshine. That's the group, of course. Professor Rajendran has had a very distinguished academic career. Those good old days where teachers really not only were passionate but also had a lot of compassion, towards students. And today, of course, things have become more costly, competitive, therefore a lot of contamination also along the way. So I think he is one of those scientists like Gopal who grew up in a society that was really free, and the ideas that came out really fundamental, as opposed to more curated ideas that we see today in the academy. So the competition, I really respect your work going back 50 years, and as I mentioned, one of his professors was talked about in the good old days, Professor Fife, with whom you got a paper on expanding rings. So we have, at least as a student, I have read some of your papers, but I look forward to your comments today, and we will continue the interaction. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the nice words. Thanks.
Okay, before I start boring technical talk, I would like to thank the organizers of this meeting, starting with Dr. Srisha Rao, who put together the symposium and the speakers and communicating with everybody. And also Dr. Joseph Matthew as Department Chair of Aerospace, supporting these kind of events and blessing such one day symposium on a prestigious world renowned professor like Dr. Gopalakrishnan, because to a department to have professors like Gopalakrishnan, the department is fortunate and lucky. This is, publishing 10 books, tell me about it. This is my first book I published, and I will never ever dare to do one more. But for Dr. Gopalakrishnan's perseverance, audacity, focus, hard work, intelligence, I can go on to add a lot of adjectives. This book would have never been published. Okay, I came here in 2018 as a professor from US to do my sabbatical, first time and last time in my career at the Indian Institute of Science, because of the support of Dr. Gopalakrishnan through the Pratt and Whitney program. And I met him in, really honestly, if I go back, really, it is 2005 in IIT Chennai, where Dr. Abdul Kalam, the President of India, inaugurated a conference called ICCES, and I was the general chairman of that conference. So, and that's where some kind of contact initiated between me and Dr. Gopalakrishnan. And then in 2008, accidentally, the divine action, I met him again one-on-one at a workshop in Washington, D.C., organized by the Solid and Structural Mechanics program manager, Dr. Yapa Rajapakse. And I gave a talk on behalf of U.S. Army, but the meeting was U.S. Navy. So Gopal was there and Atluri was there. We had lunch together and got to know, and we saw a lot of similarities in the value system, ethics, and whatnot. Then we continued our interactions and we kept in touch. And when opportunity came, 2018, I came to Indian Institute of Science, and I stayed here 4 months. At that time, of course, and before that, I had met Dr. Jagdish Gopalan and Dr. KPJ Reddy. So when I came in 2018, and both were pretty familiar colleagues and friends. So it worked out good. At that time, I asked Gopal, what can we do during my sabbatical year? So the idea just sparked. Why not put together a book on brittle failure under shock and impact? It's not an easy book. I know already. I know the people who spoke before me clearly articulated the complexity. Like Dr. Jagdish Gopalan as well as Dr. Simha. And there are three major topics. If you don't know them, you can never work in this field. What are they? Number one, shock wave propagation. Okay, fundamentals of shock wave propagation. Number two, constitutive equations. That includes damage, initiation, evolution, and coalescence. And the effect of damage for metal, it's always strength degrades, not stiffness. That's important. Whereas brittle material is just a strength degrades, stiffness degrades. Modeling stiffness degradation requires a solid foundation on fracture mechanics. fracture mechanics is, God, that subject developed during 1970s, even though Griffith came, the energy balance well before that. Irwin later modified that. And Kobayashi, like people, came up with the dynamic fracture experiments. And also Rosakas in Caltech. And also Ben Frandt in Brown. Before I, talk about this fiber composite, I'd also like to thank the speakers before, Professor Satyam Swas and Dr. Jagdish Gopalan, and Dr. Simha, and also, our loving, beloved friend, Dr. Always, Datta Guru. So we don't talk to each other for a long time. And so Professor Datta Guru, I met him a long time ago, and he was the former chairman of aerospace. And this department had fantastic linearage, and they had wonderful professors, and it's continuing. That's the good news. Having said that, let me just talk about fiber composite. See, the shock response, impact response of metal, well understood. So saturated, and then we moved into ceramic because U.S. Army looked at ceramic as an armor material, and armor is very important for U.S. Army. And so there's a lot of funding. My God, money was pouring down on modeling ceramic under shock and impact. I had no problem finding funding. I never wrote a single investigator proposal. My proposals were pretty much like Dr. Gopalan's proposal, multi-million dollars. That enabled you to focus on research rather than chasing money, going to Washington, D.C. And, unfortunately, I'm so happy I'm not in the current generation. I'm happy that I'm very old. Because of that, I never had problem funding. Okay, so metal's over, ceramic is over, and then we have concrete, rocks, oil shale, soil. Penetration into soil is no joke because of the missile penetrating to hit the hidden structure below the soil. And so the constitutive relation, shockwave propagation. The third one I never mentioned, I forgot. The third one is computational mechanics. Without computational codes, you can solve any problem now, whether it is at the atomistic scale, nanoscale, atomistic scale, mesoscale, or macro scale. Doesn't matter because the problems are highly nonlinear at all length scales, and you can forget temporal. So multi-scale modeling of all these materials is another. It's just only we have seen tip of the iceberg. I have written papers on molecular dynamic simulation of single crystal and stuff like that. So why I'm saying that when metal, concrete, ceramic, rocks, oil shale, people have been modeling that. But when it can come to fiber composites under shock loading, you won't find many papers. You find data, the high strain rate data, like by Professor Sirakowski. I don't know Dr. Simha knows him or not, but he contributed the Hopkinson bar data for different types of composite materials. And so then next question is, what happens if we use shockwave, if you use woven composite, fiber composite, like fiber reinforced glass, or GRP, which is glass reinforced plastic, then how would you model them under shock and impact? So I'll just quickly go through this. We attempt to do that, and the idea is that, okay, the material is highly nonlinear, geometrical construction is nonlinear, and the loading is nonlinear, and there are different types of experimental data is required. So you put together a program. You look at the shock waves, which is standard, traditional, a thin plate hitting a thick plate, and then split Hopkinson bar is now every university, every mechanical engineering department, they have it. And now students, even undergraduate students, routinely develop high-strain data for a variety of materials. And again, as mentioned, K.T. Ramesh put together what Dr. Gopalan mentioned, that all type of materials, so brittle materials. So we included that in the book. And then at the end of the day, the application includes blast and ballistic. And blast and ballistic experiments, they have to be diagnostic. You know, in the blast experiment, we use high-speed cameras. We can use some gauges. You know, it depends on how you design the experiment. But ballistic experiment is very difficult to do some diagnostic. The reason is simple. It's opaque, target is opaque, and you cannot use camera. Camera, you don't know what's going on when the bullet goes into the thick target. So the ballistic tests, diagnostic tests are complex, and at the end of the day, I've put together all the constitutive and damage models into a code, like commercial code like Abacus or ANSYS or LS-DYNA or your own code, that you have to implement all the constitutive model plus equation of states. Equation of states for metal, you know, people use Migronation equation and very accurate and no problem. But what about brittle material? That's what Dr. Gopalan mentioned. It's hard, it's difficult to even fundamentally understand the equation of state for brittle materials. So the plate impact is a standard, and quickly I'll mention that you shoot a flare plate onto a stationary target, put visor, a velocity interferometry measurement, or you can also put some stress gauges and put a PMMA window so that the shock wave goes through the stress gauge into the PMMA, and you can measure directly the stress pulse into the target. They are very, very useful. And then another nice thing about plate impact, it's a clean stress state and there's no ambiguity, and it's a uniaxial strain and there's only one strain. But all the other stresses are non-zero except shear stress. So Hugoniot elastic limit is another concept where, to go back, more. I don't know how. Okay. So, if you look at it, for metallic system, the elastic plastic transition in any experiment you perform, whether steel, copper, tantalum, tungsten, you'll see beautiful transition, the wave structure there. And when people did plate impact test on ceramics, like people like Dennis Grady at Sandia and Yogi Gupta at Washington State University and Professor Clifton in Brown, and you could see that they saw just very similar to metal system. Now, why is it? You have a brittle system that exhibits similar type of Hugoniot elastic limit like metallic system. How would you explain? These were all challenges and issues, because I'm going to model that, but I have to decompose my strain into elastic strain, plastic strain, but there's no plasticity in ceramics. So these are some challenging things, and the community worked together and we resolved it through metallurgical studies. The other problem is when you do a plate impact test on ceramic, the target is completely pulverized. At the end of the day, you go and look at the test chamber, all you have is powder. How can you do metallographical studies on that? No, you can't. But metal you can recover the target, and there are ways to do, you recover as it is, and then you can do metallurgical studies. So anyway, these are some of the, and also the structural features not all brittles behave the same way. If you look at a boron carbide, which is mainly used for body armor, that's a material used for US soldiers' body armor because it's light, density is low, its Hugonioelastic limit strength is very high, but it shows a weird structure at the Hugonio point. Whereas silicon carbide, you can see it's smooth. So how do you explain those things? These are some research challenges that we all faced during 90s. Okay, Stephen Bless, the third author of this book, is a world-renowned shock physicist. His master's, MS, PhD from MIT, physics department. And he had developed unique tests, and so that's why this book has got two world-class people like Dr. Gopalakrishnan and Dr. Stephen Bless. Okay. Precursor decay, plate impact. Now, when you do plate impact, it's a dirty test because the woven composite is there's a lot of wave scatter, energy is dispersed in a very difficult way because it is highly anisotropic, it's heterogeneous, and how do you do that, and how you need a model for that. So, again, Vikas Prakash at the Case Western University, who was a student of Dr. Clifton at Brown, and in fact his master's he did under Arun Shukla, and then from there, Rhode Island, he went to Brown. So, small community, everybody knew everybody. He performed, and Army, I was at the US Army, I funded him to do these experiments, and they became really a very good data. We generated excellent data. So he did a lot of tests, plate impact tests, and you can see different velocity even at 8.5 meter per second all the way to about 420 meter per second. And he used two different thickness. One is 6.76, the other one is 13.25. So by having two different thickness target, we can really study how wave is propagating as it moves away from the impact plane, because it's continually moving. In metal, at midpoint or 3/4 distance, the profile, stress profile is identical. Metal, if the metal target is identical. Ceramic, identical. Because cracking up ceramic under high compression is not possible. Very difficult. You may have micro cracks, but not but composites, different animal. So we did those tests. And you see the data, it's kind of wavy, and that's what you would expect. And this one is for thin target, this is for thick target, and different velocities. This is incredible. Lot of PhDs can use this data for PhD thesis, dissertation, and we can work on that. So we use a model which is called hyperelasticity damage model. So this model is very powerful and very effective. So you can see this is stress tensor, and first term is shear modulus, and this is a stretch tensor, and this bulk modulus, and J is the Ogden parameter that, beta is the Ogden parameter, J is the Jacobian, and these first two terms capture the behavior, shock and impact behavior of matrix material, whereas the other terms they capture the stretch response under shock loading in the fiber. If there are two fiber system, you have K1 and then K2, another fiber system, and we have the shear effect on the fibers and a stretch effect on the fiber. So this constitutive equation, we implemented it in Abacus, and we and also we included a damage term. The shear modulus is degraded due to damage in matrix material, and bulk modulus also degraded due to damage in the matrix material. And you can see that there are all different types of damage parameters that describe the degradation of those fibers and matrix under compression, tension, and shear. So that tells you it's a powerful constitutive damage model that we can. And then I'm going to skip. When you have a damage model, you need equation to describe the damage. And this model chose strain-based damage model because strain is a parameter that you can measure in the experiment. However, on the contrary, if you have a damage model with stress-based, in my opinion, it's very difficult because stress cannot be measured. So when you put together and then do the simulation of the plate impact test, the first thing we noticed the implementation exhibited and manifested highly mesh dependency. Each time you change the mesh, you get different result. So the students and researchers, postdocs, you can't just walk away with one simulation with one type of mesh. You have to continue to change the mesh, continue to make it highly resolved, and to make sure until you get a saturated result, then you can believe in that. Then we simulated and plotted all the damage increase at a different location, and then we saw the effect of shear and bulk modular damage, and then we compared the experimental result for thick and thin, and you can see that the nonlinear portion is captured by the model, and we were very happy. At the low velocity, no problem, because the equation of state is straightforward. That's a linear equation of state. But as a composite material has got complex equation of state, and you see that. And the wavery in the experiment is due to fiber matrix interaction. The wave is responding to the nonlinear geometry. And you can see that how the stress wave, the strain rate varies. This is time and at a different location. See, very close to the impact plane, the strain rate is extremely high. When you go farther and farther away, you can see how the strain rate decays. So we studied that. At the end, our goal is to see whether we can model the experiment and the data, and which we did pretty good. I think this one or somewhere it is there. Maybe I skipped. Okay, here. So this is good. The previous one, this is for thin plate. So same set of constants for the constitutive model, and we could reproduce low velocity to high velocity, thick target to thin target, we reproduced. So we published a paper in Journal of Applied Physics, these results, and we are happy and we moved on. And another quickly I would go through. We also looked at the equation of Hugoniot. If you look at Hugoniot, it's complex, and you can see that, is that the one? Yeah, Hugoniot. So we resolve the Hugoniot curve, but you can see some nonlinearity emanates from somewhere here, and then it's more or less straight line. So another problem we looked at is bio-inspired protective materials by design. So we want to design layered material by just inspired by the microstructure and the layering of fish scale. This fish not me, this guy caught it in Mississippi River, very close to our university. So we went and told him we need some scales. He thought we were asking for the meat. But we said, no, we are not interested. We want the scales. So we collected the scales. And then the Army lab in Vicksburg, Corps of Engineers lab, with them we did a lot of microstructure analysis and understood how this scale is, I'm not sure. Okay. You see, the scale is, you can see Let me. Some time ago, I started this thing. Maybe there's one more. No, I don't have that view graph. See what happened? The top layer. This is like ceramic. Okay, this is hydroxyapatite. The hydroxyapatite is like ceramic. So the thickness, if I remember correctly, about 80 micron. And then you see the bone. Third layer is the bone. The bone has got large number of collagen percentage. And then the interface, look at the interface. The very wavy. So now this hydroxyapatite is kind of, what do you call that, embedded into the bone layer, anchored. So we model them. But the collagen, very little collagen in the hydroxyapatite. So collagen just like a polymer fiber. So when you go down, there is a continuous variation of collagen. And after some depth, it's all collagen, you know. So now this collagen is the most important one for you to study and include. Why a scale? Yes, I think that's it. Why a scale? Um, one alligator bites another alligator, the teeth of that alligator will not embed into the scale. And one alligator bangs onto the other alligator, nothing. So the scales can take energy, attenuates, and absorb. So that's the idea. How can we use that and mimic that? Now, again, I'm coming back to Gopal. Now, you see the wavy structure. Yeah, stress waves will propagate, and he can model that. So Gopal has also modeled woodpecker. The woodpecker beak has got a unique geometrical arrangement. So his extraordinary capability to model any highly nonlinear structure, and he published a paper on that. With that, I'm sorry I took more time, and appreciate the opportunity, and I love IISc. I always coming back. Thanks. Thank you.
Maybe a question or two from the
Not true.
audience. Need any clarification from a really good expert, probably the leading expert in this area? We'd be happy to take a couple of questions.
Yeah. Student,
Students, especially.
do you want to? Yeah, thank you.
Moment to question. No questions?
I would like to ask,
Please.
the kind of data that you have generated, I think, is it correct to say that we can incorporate this into a digital twin model for material behavior? Do you have that much of data, or still?
You are talking about digital twin.
Yeah.
So whether we can use machine learning and artificial
Yes.
intelligence to come up with a model, replica model of the physical system through the twins. Not this kind of composite. We don't have enough data. No. But we do have enough data on like materials like concrete and ceramic, and there is very good opportunity. But then again, what is that you want to apply for? See, digital twins, Air Force did it about 30 years ago for retiring the airplane. They started that. They didn't call that as a digital twin, but later on, digital twin came because of the advent of computers, and in addition to the development of Python-based ML and AI techniques. Yeah. Thank you. That's a
Please introduce yourself.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Host.
I can. The loudspeaker is on.
Okay. So my question is a continuation of what Professor has already asked about digital twin. There is called PIN, physics informed neural network. That kind of things where you can directly put that whatever constitute law inside the neural network. That kind of things.
Yeah, yeah. See that you can use that constitutive equation parameters. You change them. Each one there are 20 parameters. If you change one, so you can see you can generate computationally enormous data, not experimentally. But then here and there's spotty validation. You have to do it. Now, see that like I know again coming to structural health monitoring (SHM). The SHM now in US Army, Corps of Engineers, they are into predicting the life of the bridge. America has got 128,000 bridges, or 228,000 bridges. Out of that, about, no, that's India actually. India has got 228,000 bridges. Out of that, about 20,000 bridges are really in serious trouble. Now they are doing CSIR in Chennai. In fact, professor from Delhi, Dr. Kapuria, he came last week, and they are doing digital twins to predict predictive maintenance, to do predictive maintenance of critical infrastructures. Okay. Now I don't know what exactly your application is. I don't know, but digital twins is now taking momentum, and because of computing power and the chips that NVIDIA like company makes. Yeah. Thank you.
We also use in aerospace too.
Yeah, aerospace too. Yeah, they started it first. Aerospace started it first. Now civil structures they are doing for SHM. And I know Gopal's book on stress waves, he covers SHM in wave propagation in nanostructure, wave propagation in layer structure, yeah, all kind of theoretical results have been published in the book. And the people who work in digital twins can use that kind of textbook and generate data. Yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you have seen the confidence, courage, and clarity of the presentation,
Thank you.
which is nowadays not always possible early in the morning. But
Thank
on
you.
behalf of the society, it is a great pleasure that I could chair a very distinguished session. With this, may I present this small memento to the
Thank
speaker.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate
I'll
that.
interact
Well,
with
I
you.
got excited when you mentioned about Ian 5 and
Yes.
Kobayashi.
Oh, of course.
And incredible.
I know. These are the people who guided destiny of thousands
Yeah, I know.
Indian students like
He's
me.
100 years old, still alive. Yeah.
And Shamarela is 102 years.
Wow.
He still comes to the department. 102.
Now
Oh,
we have a
boy.
For
short
C.R.
break.
Rao, 100
I
years.
know, I
We'll
know.
join back by
I think you keep in
10:45.
touch with Gopal. You will write one more.